Welcome to Popternative, where we dive into topical discussions from the worlds of pop culture, social media, and sports. Here is your host, Peter Remoliotis, aka PD Beats.
Hello and welcome to the Popternative podcast, the podcast and talk show where we have digital discussions from the worlds of TV, film, pop culture, music, news, everything really, depending on the guest. We talk about it all. As always, I'm your host, Peter Remoliotis. On social media, you know me as PD Beats. My guest is an actor and a musician. You'll recognize her recently from Cobra Kai Season 3. She plays Betsy, part of the Young Kreese backstory. Emily Marie Palmer is with us. Emily, welcome to Popternative.
Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. I mean, we talked about it a bit before. I mean, it's been a normal few weeks for you, eh? With a little show kind of dropped, and it's been kind of different.
Yes, absolutely. It's been a crazy few weeks in a lot of ways, but all positive regarding Cobra Kai. That's been such a, yeah.
I mean, it's one of those things where, you know, I try to go in as fresh as I can. I don't want to get all the spoilers because I'm also a fan of the show. And I knew there was going to be some kind of like Kreese backstory, but I did not expect it to be what it was and what it looked like. Like the whole thing was incredible.
Really? Had you read, because I became aware later after shooting the scene that there was a comic book and Betsy was part of the comic book. Did you know any of that?
I knew a little bit about that. I knew there was a lot. I mean, the Cobra Kai fans and the Karate Kid fans, I mean, it's like they know everything and they're loyal about everything, but it's just unbelievable. Cobra Kai, like Season 3 on Netflix, just how it looked, Emily. Like the backstory was just amazing. Like you can't believe it's like part of Cobra Kai. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. When I got the audition from my agent, I had heard of Cobra Kai, but I hadn't seen the show. And I start reading this scene, and you know, there's this young woman sending off her love to the Vietnam War, and I was thinking, like, isn't Cobra Kai present day? And so I instantly knew there was something going on, and I didn't know, because a lot of times higher profile shows like this will send out dummy sides. You know, they'll send out scenes that aren't really going to be the real content that ends up in the series. And so I didn't know. It's like, maybe this is a trick, maybe it won't really be this. And so yeah, all of that to say, it was, I knew instantly that they're doing something different with this. This is, you know, something new this time around. So
absolutely. For you, like, you know, stepping a bit back from the Cobra Kai stuff for a little bit, about you specifically, Emily Marie Palmer, as kind of a storyteller and an actor and a musician. When did that kind of all start for you? When did you decide that performing was something you wanted to do?
You know, I've just always loved stories. I feel like music specifically is kind of in my blood. Like I come from, you know, Appalachian kind of folk on my mom's side. And so I grew up with her singing these beautiful lullabies, these old folk tales, and just fell in love with that from a really young age. And so I always loved telling stories in that way and hearing stories. And I think, I mean, I don't know if there was a moment, you know, that I knew, oh, I want to perform, but I do remember, I always had this desire, if I discovered something I loved, a story that was really meaningful to me, I always wanted to share it.
Yep.
And one time when I think I was 6 or 7, my family took a trip to Washington, D.C. and we, you know, before we went on the trip, it was like I knew I was going to get to choose one souvenir. And so the whole time, whenever we'd go in a gift shop, I was like looking around, scoping it out. Is this going to be the place I find my souvenir? And I finally had the magical moment, and I found the thing I wanted, and it was this little storybook about the life of Clara Barton, who was this, you know, now famous Civil War nurse, and went on to found the Red Cross. And I just loved her, and she became one of my heroes. And so I do remember thinking at a really young age, like, I want to make a movie about her, because then everyone will know her awesome story. You know, hardly anyone's reading this little book I have, but I want to be able to share this with people. So that was kind of the first like seedling of me thinking, like, I'd like to be a filmmaker someday. I'd like to be in that world.
Yeah, and I find that's a really interesting story that kind of like segues back to the whole Young Kreese thing, because, you know, it's interesting. We know about John Kreese. We know about him as, you know, the, you know, founder of Cobra Kai, and he's this brutal guy. We know he's been in the Vietnam War, but we have not kind of seen that story before. Like, we don't know. Like, we know it's there, and you guys kind of showed it in Season 3, which was unbelievable. So it's like diving into new stories as well.
Yeah, totally.
And for
And
you specifically, kind of working with Jesse and Barrett, that scene in the diner, I feel like was just kind of like a mind blowing situation for everyone involved, where they kind of duped us, where we thought it was maybe Jesse who was going to be playing his father in the backstory, but it's actually
yeah.
Barrett. That whole thing was insane. I mean, were you surprised that people got duped when you saw like the reception after it came out?
No, because I got duped when I got the audition sides. Like reading it, he was my boyfriend and fiance now, but he helped me tape it, and we were kind of like trying to, dissect this scene and those lines, no, show him no mercy. It's like we were like, wait, is this Kreese? And because the names were changed too, so we got duped. So I'm not at all like that. It was just such a fun little way to kind of throw people off the scent, and make them think that he was this bully his whole life, and in reality, it was a totally different story.
And the thing is, we talked about before we started. I mean, not that much screen time. I mean, Betsy's in, an episode, or is it two? Is it two?
Just one.
It's just one, okay. But like you're kind of around the whole backstory though. Like it's all about Betsy, you know what I mean? So it's interesting how it's like one episode, but your character kind of lives on throughout other episodes as well.
It's true. It's true. He has, he's getting letters from me, and he has the picture of Betsy. So it's true.
So with that one episode of Cobra Kai, your Instagram following is just kind of exploded, and it's just crazy to see that, right? That we live in kind of a world now where, you show up to work on a couple of days of shooting one episode, and then just like that, people kind of gravitate towards Betsy, and, you see that. Isn't that crazy to see? What's that been like for you, the reception?
Oh, it's been magical and lovely. I mean, I've gotten the kindest emails and notes. I've posted a couple times, thanking people, and I haven't responded to all of them, but have to some, and I think Betsy, even though she is only on screen for a short time, she is this really wonderful character. She's such a compassionate soul, and I think a lot of people really connected with her. And I've had some people write and say like, "Oh, thank you for playing Betsy. She reminded me of my first love," and it had such a positive experience watching that backstory of Kreese, and it allowed us to see more of his humanity. Just all kinds of really wonderful things like that. So it's been lovely connecting with the fans of the show.
What has it been like? Because you can't escape them; they're around. What has it been like? Whether you get a message or whether it's you see a YouTube video. I mean, tons of like theories from Cobra Kai fans. Like you can't escape them. Like there's so many kind of theories and ideas people have about Betsy and stuff. Like how have you kind of dealt with all that? Because there's so many things, right? Where there's, what's gonna happen here, or what actually happened, or like, if you had like, like who. Like, do you have, children or like that stuff? Like, there's all these kind of questions. Like, how have you kind of dealt with like the fan theories of Betsy?
Yeah, I mean, it's been really fun to see, speculation and different people's ideas, and it's really funny. I almost feel like people kind of see what they want to see, though. Like my face is maybe a chameleon or something, because I've seen so many people online say there's this strong resemblance between her and Tori, the actress who plays Tori, and she's got to be related to her. And then I've seen a whole other camp of people saying there's this really strong resemblance between her and Mary Mauser, who plays Sam. So maybe she's Amanda's, mother, and she's Sam's grandmother. So I really think people kind of see what they want to see, as far as my appearance and who Betsy could be related to. But it is fun to read the speculation.
Tons of Betsy theories, like you said, about that. Like this is your mother. Really, like so many of them.
Yeah, a lot of, some people think she's still alive, and some people think she's not still alive, but she did live longer than, it was the captain was playing mind games with Kreese, and she wasn't really dead then. And I have to say, there's, I think the YouTube channel is Cobra Kai Kid, and he did a video about Betsy theories, and he pointed out that in the comic book, I think Betsy's letters I think Kreese says that Betsy's letters come in little red envelopes. Yes. And he pointed out that the envelope that the captain hands to Kreese, is red. So it does seem to imply that it's a letter from Betsy. and not necessarily, I mean, you know, if it's her special trademark stationery. So it's like maybe she was alive and maybe it wasn't. I don't know. And I have to be totally transparent that I am purely speculating. I don't have any insider information.
Well, I mean,
so.
I feel like it's not that hard for you because I know, like, having a lot of actor friends and stuff, like, you don't know anything. They don't tell you anything.
Not at all. Not at all. And even, you know, even if they're, because at the wrap party for season 3, one of the producers was, you know, so kind and saying how much he loved the flashback scenes and saying, you know, like, oh, I hope they can find a way to bring you back for more. And even that doesn't mean that she lived, because it could be, you know, scenes in those 3 years that Kreese and Betsy had together. So,
well, the one theory I had, and when I had Jesse and Barrett on my show, we talked about it, was in Karate Kid 3, which is the one that kind of where we see Terry Silver, who we find out is Twig in the backstory, and then, you know, they're opening up Terry Silver comes back to help out Kreese with a dojo. They have kind of a prodigy, right? Mike Barnes, played by Sean Kanan, and he's basically like the Cobra Kai, like, bad guy student type thing. And the theory I had is that's Varsity Captain David. That's Jesse Cove's, like, that's his dad, basically.
I see.
Because they both have, like, the really short buzz hair, the athlete. I mean, you never know.
You know,
and that
you
person's
never know.
recruited to their dojo. I'm just saying.
Yeah, the possibilities are endless. And honestly,
it's fun.
And that's part of what's so good about Cobra Kai is, like, Josh and John and Hayden, they're such, you know, big fans of Karate Kid, and they do their research so thoroughly. You know, the fact that they have all these little, you know, details, like from the comic, of the red envelopes, and there's so many layers and levels of things that they've incorporated into the show.
You know nothing, we know this, you know what I mean? I'm just saying about the hypotheticals, because it's exciting to think about, you know what I mean? There's rumblings about a possible spin-off of Cobra Kai stuff. There's a possible spin-off about Young Kreese. I mean, that would be so much fun to see, hypothetically. Like, that would just be really cool to see more about those characters in that kind of timeline.
I totally agree. I would, even if I didn't play Betsy, even if I hadn't played her, I would love to see that. I think it'd be great. So,
I think what's interesting is, and I think this has to do with how content is being consumed these days, but, like, I think it was like Cobra Kai was #1 in over, like, 10 countries in the first, like, 2 days of it launching, which is insanity. But I feel like it just hit so quick. Like, everyone watched it, like, immediately. Whereas, like, it kind of, like, I know there's a lot of the big fans that have, like, went back and watched it and stuff, but something like that is interesting because it's like you binge it for a week. Like, people binge it and it's got this really big kind of shelf life for like a week or two, and then people want season 4, right? But so it's like that debate too about the binge culture, right? Where some networks are kind of dropping maybe 1 or 2 episodes, then making it week to week, right? Like, as an actor, a storyteller working in the industry, not just Cobra Kai, I'm just curious about your standpoint about that, about binge culture.
Oh, gosh, that's a tough question. I mean,
it's interesting, right? Because it just like, look, I watched it all, right? Like, I mean, it's over.
And then there's like that emptiness in your life. It's like, what did I do before I started this show? You know, like, after you have that. But at the same time, I think everyone has benefited in a way from being able to binge a wonderful show, whether it's a time when they're sick or anything else, you know, so there's something nice about that. But yeah, then there's that, like, letdown and that emptiness of, like,
we have to wait a long time for season 4.
Exactly. So I know. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is.
It's just interesting to think about because of the fact that it's definitely one of those things. You talk to the cast and crew, and a lot of even like the people that are regulars on it, and it's just like, you know, the first couple of days were probably just like insanity with the show launching and press and everything. And then it actually kind of slowed down a lot. Like, it slowed down quicker than it should have a little bit in terms of that, because people like are done watching it.
Yeah, totally. It's funny because I hadn't been on social media. I got off social media like at the end of last summer, and I had my email attached to my Instagram, and I put a note that you could email me if you were trying to get in touch, and I think I had an email or two come through literally at like 4 or 5 a.m. on the first, like someone who had seen the show. So I could tell, like, oh, you were waiting for Cobra Kai and you just watched the whole season. It was like the quickest they possibly could have watched it, so and then there have been people who messages have trickled in since then, but
Did you shoot your stuff like at the same time as like when like the other stuff, like the present stuff, was being shot? Was it the same time frame?
As far as like, were they shooting like other,
like when they were shooting Cobra Kai, right? Like everything Cobra Kai. Were like, did the backstory, was that filmed a different time, or like the same week of set? Like, was it?
It was the same week. So
okay.
It was actually all supposed to be done in one day, everything with my character.
Yes.
And Jesse's character as well. Obviously, Barrett had more to do. But it was supposed to be done in one day. And then I think they talked about this with you, that we had crazy weather.
Yes.
And so every time there was a lightning strike or, within a certain proximity, they had to delay us another 30 minutes. And they were trying to get that fight scene shot, which is outside, of course. And so because of those weather delays, the whole day, we did manage to get everything in the diner done that day. Although a few things had to be lost, but then Barrett and I had to come back the next day to film the scene of Betsy sending Kreese off to war.
Well, because the reason I asked about that is because I interviewed Sholo, who plays Miguel. I interviewed him in around April, where like a lot of people were just the pandemic, not doing much, right? So we just talked, and he's like, the show is in the can. We just don't know like when it's gonna be, like, because one of my point is like this was done a while ago. Like season 3 was completed a while ago, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. And to finish answering your question, they were filming at the same time the next day, because Barrett and I, that last scene kind of had to be pushed in between. They had to just work it in where they could, and so they were actually shooting the scene with Johnny and in the garage when they have the big, which is also in episode 2, I think, of season 3. But so that was kind of going on, and we were almost on like a little mini second unit just outside. So they were filming it in tandem, and our scenes were kind of interspersed throughout.
It's wild. And I know Hero, the stunt coordinator on the show, it's interesting too, because he's also the stunt coordinator for Stranger Things as well.
Okay.
And I find it interesting because I remember sometimes there's overlap in the shows, like filming. And one season, I believe there was overlap where he had to go like back and forth. Like, talk about 2 like massive shows to go back and forth with, eh? Because it all films in Atlanta. Are you from Atlanta, Emily?
I'm not from there.
Like, do you reside in Atlanta?
Sort of, not currently. So I lived there for several years, a few years, and then moved to Nashville, but sort of still split my time between the two places. I have family down in Atlanta, and have some family here. And for most of the pandemic, I've been in Nashville, living here. But I do kind of go back and forth.
For sure. So another thing too is you do the music thing as well. You are a musician. You live in Nashville, so naturally, I feel like people just assume that you play country music.
Yeah, totally. Although I grew up here, I grew up outside of Nashville, and I didn't move here to like pursue the music dream or anything. So it's pure coincidence.
Well, I do need to let you know that like I live in Canada. I'm in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, the nation's capital, and I feel like it's kind of like a secret, but not really. Like the people that live here, but like country music in Ottawa, Ontario, huge. Like, really? Massive. Like, insanely big.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm just letting you know that. Like, it's huge.
That's good. I feel like sometimes, less so now, but growing up, being from Nashville, it's like, oh, country music, like, because we're the locals. And so it's like, that feels like the touristy thing. Whereas I had friends and family who lived in the West and they loved country music, but I've grown out of that rebellious,
Do you find it compliments yourself as kind of a storyteller and a performer when you're kind of able to kind of be on kind of a journey of kind of two kind of paths, of like the path of kind of like the acting stuff and then like the music? I mean, that must be exciting but overwhelming at the same time.
I haven't ever pursued music in a way that I ever put any pressure on myself. I've never, I've done some live shows, and I have released a couple singles now, and I do have an album in the works, but I've never put any pressure on myself to meet any deadlines, or it's always been a pursuit adjacent to the acting, but purely just because I love it and because I sort of can't not do it.
Yeah.
It's just kind of part of me, and I also very quickly learned after I got into film, because I had done theater, that was sort of where I learned about acting and kind of found my bearings and my voice a little bit. But when I got into film, I kind of very quickly learned that like so much of it is just being the right thing that fits someone else's vision. You can do your very, very best, and you can still just not be the thing that they're looking for. And so I had just so much freedom in music and being able to just make my own music and express whatever I wanted to express. I didn't have to try and fit someone else's vision. I wasn't having to seek approval in any way. I could just get my guitar and write something that was exactly what I wanted it to be and say exactly what I wanted to say. So music has really just been because I love it. And I'm really happy that some people have turned out to love my music too. I kind of started sharing it on Instagram. So
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's amazing. And Emily, thank you so much for coming on Popternative. I really enjoyed chatting with you for a little bit.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you. Yeah, I want to hear more about you. Maybe after we stop, I want to hear how you guys started doing this. But.
Well, no, I mean, I've been doing this show for about 5 years. I mean, it kind of, it's a podcast and a talk show. I kind of interview a lot of different people from, pop culture, music, lifestyle, sports, and we just kind of shoot the breeze. Like, I just kind of want to have a fun conversation where there's not a lot of pressure, where it's like, I'll send talking points and, questions that they want, but it's just casual, talking about the art, talking about things coming up, you know what I mean? So started that, and that's amazing. Where can people follow you on social media to keep update with everything?
Yeah, so my Instagram is just my full name. It's at Emily Marie Palmer. Mm-hmm. And I sort of have a love-hate relationship with social media in general. So I'm sometimes on it and sometimes not. But I do have a little email button where people can email me if they ever want to reach out. And I will, obviously, I'll keep updating from time to time. But Instagram is probably the best place. I'm also on Twitter and post kind of sporadically and mostly about like human rights issues that I'm passionate about. So if you want to follow me there, that'd be great too.
And if they haven't already, they could catch you as Betsy in season 3 of Cobra Kai, now available on Netflix.
That's right. And my music is also on iTunes and Spotify and Bandcamp. So
amazing. Well, this is awesome. Well, this has been Popternative, youtube.com/Popternative for previous episodes. Until next time, this is Emily Marie Palmer and Petey Beats signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube. Be sure to like Popternative on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.